the end of the world. I could feel all this death.
Jean, it was just a dream.
You wander through the willows in the forest you have found.
I've been called many things over many lifetimes.
Trying to hide.
Ra, Krishna, Yahweh.
Ever since the world found out about mutants, there have been secret societies who see them as some kind of second coming or sign of God. They believe that tens of thousands of years ago, an ancient being was born, the world's first
Mutant.
You are all my children. And you're lost. Because you follow blind leaders. But I am here now. I'm here for you.
Wherever this being was, he always had 4 followers he would imbue with power.
Like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. You got that one from the Bible.
Or the Bible got it from him.
What is it?
Oh, God.
Hello and welcome to a Marvel Cinematic University. I am your Professor Rivera, and of course, is joining me is the marvelous doctoral student ClycloneMC, who has a bachelor's in the MCU, a master's in the multiverse, and is going for their dissertation in Marvel Studies. Welcome back, Sly. We are back doing this again after the holiday break, and we're going to be talking about some more Marvel stuff. So how you been?
I have been great. I have been, really diving into my Marvel allegiance recently, and I've been playing pretty much exclusively Marvel Snap since it
Lord.
came out.
Yeah.
So, I'm doing great.
That's good. I've also been maintaining my allegiance to playing only, if anything, just Marvel Snap every day, all day, whenever I have a free moment on the bathroom toilet. Every day, I'm just playing this goddamn game. It is fantastic. Can't wait for the
And
Ant-Man
I
season.
gotta say, Marvel Snap really pulling through, because the only reason I know the titular character of the movie we're talking about today, Apocalypse, is because he's the 6th card in my favorite deck.
That's right. Oh man, you run an Apocalypse deck too? I run an Apocalypse deck as well. Yeah, for sure. Doing the work, Marvel Snap. Thank you. I mean, I just got introduced to a character named Sabu. I had no idea you were a thing, but apparently you're a cat. So shout out to, of course, Marvel Snap. Of course, you've alluded to what we are going to be talking about today, which is the next X-Men and the X-Men series that we're basically doing this show about going forward. We're of course talking about X-Men Apocalypse 2016. Yeah, let's just go ahead and get right into this convoluted mess that is the Marvel X-Men universe. Let's go ahead and jump straight into history class. Of course, continuing directing is Bryan Singer from, of course, the original X-Men movie onto this one. This is still written by Simon Kinberg. The studio at this time is still Fox Studios. They are still chugging these out. And, of course, stars James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, Jennifer Lawrence. I almost read a name that's not in this movie. Nicolas Cage, Evan Peters, Oscar Isaac, and so many more people that I'll just keep listing names. Sansa Stark is in this. It's a lot. It's a lot.
I gotta say, Nicholas Hoult is in this movie, not Nicolas Cage.
That's correct. That is correct. Did I say Nicolas Cage? Oh no.
Yes.
I got Nicolas Cage on the brain. I can't wait for actually, funny you say that, which I don't know if you know this or not. Nicholas Hoult and Nicolas Cage going to be in a movie together this year called Renfield, which is Nicolas Cage is playing Dracula.
There you go.
And he's playing Renfield. So there you go. There's the connection. Get ready for when we do MC Nicolas Cage coming up later. No, that'd be great though. Right now, you can still stream this movie on Disney Plus, where you can find this and most of the Marvel X-Men films. Let's go ahead and go on to the plot. So I don't remember. So by the way, we are going to have a special guest this episode. They will appear momentarily. Jacob McCourt, thank you so much for stopping by. We're going to cut to his section in a second. I think I had him read the plot, but just for safety's sake, Sly, can you please read me the plot of this episode?
Of course. All right. I was not prepared for this, but let's dive right in. The plot of X-Men Apocalypse 2016. Since the dawn of civilization, he was worshipped as a god. Apocalypse, the first and most powerful mutant from Marvel's X-Men universe, amassed the powers of many other mutants, becoming immortal and invincible. Upon awakening after thousands of years, he is disillusioned with the world as he finds it and recruits a team of powerful mutants, including a disheartened Magneto. That's one word for what he is in this movie.
Yeah.
Cleanse mankind and create a new world order. Ooh, we don't like that mythology, my dude.
Oh no.
Over which he will reign. As the fate of the Earth hangs in the balance, Raven, with the help of Professor X, must lead a team of young X-Men to stop their greatest nemesis and save mankind from complete destruction. Thank you, 20th Century Fox. I also really love that they name drop Raven before Professor
Yes.
X. We love to see it.
You know that Jennifer Lawrence is the star of this movie. That's right. Mystique. So good. Interesting wording that they chose in there as well. I like the idea of Apocalypse being disillusioned by the world, just becoming like a straight emo teen with this like emo band that he starts. It's
basically
what this movie's about, which very happy about. And of course, yes, I don't know, the cleansing mankind and creating a new world order in the same sentence with the word Magneto.
It's a choice, 20th Century Fox.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. But still, ugh. Of course, the comic book characters in the show, in this movie, is Professor X, Magneto, Jean Grey, Cyclops, Storm, Nightcrawler, Mystique, Angel, Caliban, Psylocke, Apocalypse, and I guess more. There's actually quite a few more in this one. That is just the Storm. Did I mention Storm? Yeah, I did mention Storm. Okay. There's so many people. But we'll get into that as we gonna move in to our main segment, of course. We're going to be talking about the film in our Stan Lee seminar. Sly, I have to ask you, okay? I'm just going to let the curtain down for a second. So I watched this movie before we did the break, and you watched this movie about a week ago. So our minds are probably melding in different ways of like what we recollect for this film. And that's going to make a fantastic analysis. So let's go ahead and kick it off. Stanley's seminar. Sly, what did you think of X-Men Apocalypse?
Okay, so I want to start you off with my initial reflections on this movie. Is that I loved it.
Oh shit! What? Okay. I didn't expect that.
I think it was a fine movie. Like good.
Okay.
Not great.
Okay.
By any means.
Okay. We can love not great movies. That's fine.
That's the thing. I love bad movies. We all know this about me.
Yeah.
But I really loved this movie. I think it's a combination of getting to know these characters over the course of this series.
Yes.
And now being at a place in my like Marvel consumption to the point where I'm getting all of these references and recognizing all these characters, so that when a character pops up on screen and I go, oh my gosh, is that going to be Storm? And then it is, I get that payoff of being like, oh, I know these characters. And the third, getting to see my favorite divorced couple on screen together again, like
I'm trying to think of who you're referring to. There's a few of them.
Cherrick. Duh.
Yes, you're right.
It's well established on the show that every time I watch an X-Men movie afterwards, I immediately go to archiveofourown.org and look up all of the fanfic from the newest movie with them together. um, but yeah, I had so much fun with this movie. It
Yeah.
felt this is going to be a contradictory statement, so bear with me. For a movie about the end of the world, it felt like comparatively very low stakes.
Fair.
Like
No, that's fair.
it was like big destruction of the world, blah blah blah, blah, whatever. We know they're gonna save it. We know there's more movies to come. So it felt kind of cozy, low stakes, just getting to see all these characters I've like grown to love over the course of these series. So yeah, I had a great time with this movie.
No, that's fun to hear. I'll even say like I don't hate this movie. After watching it my time, I just thought it was just okay. It was just another just like going through the motions. I think the potential for some things were just sort of lackluster, specifically on the villain side, where Apocalypse is one of X-Men's like main major villains. I personally have never read any of the stories. I've watched some of the cartoon of this section, so I was just kind of like hoping to be like kind of like, oh, this is why this character is so interesting. And I really don't have that in this interpretation of it. I honestly think that this is sort of a waste of Oscar Isaac's talent, which a lot of science fiction seems to do. Hopefully they'll rectify that in the future. But ultimately, the idea of the core, the four horsemen, and then this Apocalypse character, I just felt like there was so much more that they could have done that they decided to move against. And I think that's in structure to like, all right, we have a structure now for these movies, from First Class to Days of Future Past and this, where it's like, all right, there's a time setting. These are the characters, and then this is, what's going to be going forward for, this section. And ultimately, I think it was also an underusing of the time period of the 80s, of the Cold War and stuff like that. So I feel like with all those things kind of culminating together, the movie itself just didn't feel enough to warrant its existence. But I do agree that spending more time with these characters that we've come to love, like specifically you mentioned Professor X and Magneto, we talked about it, like there's something going on, and this movie really helps with that, specifically towards the ending. But ultimately, yeah.
And with like the everything going on in this world, having
Yes.
that opening being a history class, but for the like current universe and not the
Yes.
past universe
Yes.
was so interesting to like establishing this universe and like refalling in love with these characters that we haven't met yet in this timeline. I think all of the lower level stuff this film does really well. All
Yes.
of the like higher level like plot and stakes were not there.
No, no whatsoever. No whatsoever. But you're right. I think that just having a new set of versions of characters that we come to know, specifically from the first X-Men movie, sort of be reintroduced, even though technically some of these characters have been reintroduced twice now, if I really think about it. Specifically,
Timelines.
let's talk about it. All right, hold on one second. I want to make sure there's no water in this cup. But let's talk about it. My boy's back. My boy is back. I'm so happy we got Cyclops again. I'm so very happy. Oh my god. This, of course, the second reintroduction into the universe. He's also getting hormones at school yet again. But you know what? I'm here for it. Personally here for it. Let's go ahead. Let's talk about more about the new characters that we have, which of course is the new class. Starting with Jean Grey, reintroduction into this. We have Storm, which is brought up, but she's not necessarily part of the school. She's definitely something that is another character that gets brought in. There's some other characters too that actually have like one line and then they don't do anything, which is Jubilee. That pisses me off, but that's fine. But we also get a reintroduction back to Nightcrawler. Specifically about Nightcrawler and his introduction story. What was it like having that character be reintroduced?
I don't remember a lot of our first interaction, like personality wise,
Sure.
of Nightcrawler. So I don't know how much that is just my faulty memory and what we actually saw,
Sure.
but I felt like this introduction was very distinct and like very memorable in his like personality
Mhm.
and like mannerisms. So I thought that was really cool that we get to see this character a little bit more fleshed out.
Yeah, and then also sort of like with Mystique, which I thought was fascinating because, like we I like to talk about before, in the comics, theoretically
Hmm.
she is his mother, and then we met Azrael in the first class, who's theoretically the father, but there's still no like association with this character, which I still find odd that they still don't want to connect in any way, even though clearly time
Hmm.
has passed. It's been at least 20 years since first class at the very least. So like theoretically this child could have
Yeah.
been birthed, but even so, the fact that they are introducing them together, I thought was interesting to bring him into the X-Men fold for the most part. We also got our reintroduction back into Angel, who is this metalhead
Hmm.
in the 80s in a death match. What is your, if you remember the recollection of our introduction in The Last Stand, he was just like this rich guy's son that he wanted to cure, and he like
He
jumps out of a
was
window.
the
Ben
the
Foster,
colonel's son or whatever.
something like that. Yeah, and he like,
Some dude.
yeah, some random side story that they just have in that movie. Uh, this is definitely the weird introduction back into that character, um, which, yeah, we'll get into that a little later when it comes to like the four horsemen, because I have some thoughts on those guys specifically. And then I mean, yeah, then we have a reintroduction back into Jean Grey. I mean, what is your thoughts on this interpretation of Jean Grey versus what we've seen before?
Um, it was Sansa Stark,
It was Sansa
right?
Stark. That's correct.
Uh, the imagery they used with the like nightmare dreaming of the end of the world moment with like
Yeah.
everything melting was really cool. I really like how they leaned into how incredibly powerful Jean Grey is in
Yes.
this interpretation. I think the previous iteration kind of shied away from like how like absurdly powerful she is. So
Yes.
that was really cool for me to see. And then the only other note I had about Jean is at the end of the movie there was a bit of like Phoenix
Mm-hmm.
imagery.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and all I know about that, I know two things. One, we have a movie called Dark Phoenix that
That's
we'll
right.
be watching eventually.
That's right.
So I'm assuming that's a Jean story. And you know who else held the Phoenix mantle?
Who else?
Maya Lopez. Echo, love of my
Ah.
life.
Oh man. Imagine a world where now X-Men are going to be integrated into the MCU, and the Phoenix Forks could eventually make their way over to Echo. Who knows? Who knows? We'll see in the next 15 years of the MCU. So
Right.
I'm glad that we're covering the dead universes. So we're not stuck doing this for 10, 15 years. But yeah. Of course, we are still in the era in which Professor X still has hair. um, what,
Oh yeah, that
yeah,
was the whole plot point.
that was a whole plot point in this movie. Which of course we then get the origin of when he loses it. Um, yeah, that's all I'll say about that. That's literally all I have for that. It's like, and now he's bald.
Yeah, it was a choice. They made it boldly.
They did.
Um,
Yeah.
and regardless how much I hate that that was the choice that was made,
Yes.
I respect how much they committed to the bit.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. If I'm not mistaken, I think some of the trivia I heard was I think James McAvoy shaved his head for this, but they're like, nah, not yet, man. You need some hair. So they like made him wear a wig first before he let him shave his head. I thought that was pretty fantastic. Okay. Well, let's get into sad hour for a second here, because we're gonna talk about Magneto's story. This is my favorite section of the movie, by the way. I just want to point that out. But go ahead, I'm gonna let you speak.
It's so good. It oof.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we all know I love this man, and getting to see his family,
Yeah.
I was like,
Papa.
okay, I know something's gonna happen, but like, I know that. I'm prepared. I'm
Mhm.
going into this knowing that something tragic is going to happen with this storyline. And yet, I was not prepared for where they were going with the storyline.
Yeah.
And after the confrontation arrow scene,
Hmm.
I needed 3 to 5 business days to emotionally recover from how brokenhearted I was. And,
Uh-huh.
like, the power of this, like, decent film to, like,
Yes.
emotionally devastate me with the storyline I knew was coming,
Yeah.
gotta give him credit for that.
No, I agree. This is the one shining part of the whole movie where I'm like, we're trying to move past just, hey, these are just comic book movies, and more like, hey, this is like a sort of
Mhm.
prestigious moment. Honestly, you could see this in the, I mean, you probably see this in The Dark Knight. We might see this in Logan when we eventually talk about Logan. But there is definitely some connective tissue in here that definitely feels um, more than this movie. And so with that, yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. That's the whole setup with Eric after the events of Days of Future Past, after trying to kill the president, is on the lam. He's hidden in the world. It's been a couple years. He's has a family, has a child. He's working in a steel mill, which, I mean, good for him for working around metal, but that's a choice because when an accident like this happens, what else can you do but use your powers? But he tries to do everything by the book and everything good in a lot of ways. He tried to save
And
people.
yeah, that's the thing. We see this
Yeah.
character who's only ever been presented as like so focused on himself and his people and his ideals, and his way is the right way.
Yes.
And after the ending of Days of Future Past, now we see him and he's, connecting with this woman, like connecting with his wife, developing this relationship. We see
This
him,
community.
kind of Com communicating
Yeah.
about his trauma a little bit. We see him developing community, he knows these people, he's working in this factory and, like, working and supporting and saving the life of humans, and this huge growth for him as a character.
Yeah.
And I think that if you don't have that, the end resolution, it
Yes.
feels cheapened. So we've seen like this huge character growth and then this moment of tragedy. And where do you go from here?
Yes.
And, that leaves him vulnerable to be recruited in such a beautiful way that we see him doubting and we see this like growth behind him still throughout every action he takes in this movie to where at the end you're like, oh, obviously he's going to help them. Like there was no doubt that that's where he was going to end up. And that storyline is just so beautiful and so well done.
Can't agree with you more. No, that's the best way to describe it. They actually took a lot of care, and again, it feels so wild that it's in the middle of this movie specifically. It's
Right.
so it's kind of backtracking. It's like it almost feels like in the same way how I would say I feel about the first movie, where I felt like it felt more prestigious than it actually. It is a comic book movie, but at the same time, they have
Mhm.
all those hints and histories of everything that happened during the Holocaust that they like sort of enforce on the character, and then for him to come to this point in his journey. Yeah, I mean, I won't lie. Like, I felt catharsis when he fucking tore down Auschwitz. Like, when he
Yeah.
tore that shit to the ground. I actually found that quite great.
And we've
Um,
seen that imagery in,
oh my god, yeah,
like basically every film.
yes,
They go back to this moment. And so for this to be like in the like redemption arc of his character,
yeah,
to have that catharsis of tearing down this like imagery that we've literally seen
hmm,
so much associated with this character is just like again, the lower level like details
hmm,
of this film are incredible.
yes, yeah, no, absolutely. And then we have to then continue on with our villain. Our villain, of course, being Oscar Isaac under heavy makeup. Um, uh, who, by the way, there's a deleted scene. I don't know if you've seen this deleted scene, but you know how the four horsemen get their outfits? He makes them
Mhm.
with the sewing machine.
Oh, that's so good.
I gotta show you the clip later. It's so funny. But yeah, you can find this deletes and he's just like making dresses. I love that. I kind of like that. But yeah, so we get introduced to this character, which we don't really know a whole lot. We're just sort of introduced him always from the side. It's just like he just is consuming this power. I assume he has some greater motivation other than he just wants everything to be in his own image for the most part and have mutants run everything, which is seemingly the problem for all these movies specifically.
Mhm.
But in terms of where he then indoctrinates other characters, we could talk a little bit about Storm in this instance. So Storm, not being normally an X-Men, just being a kid who then sees this person who protects her specifically in an incident.
Mhm.
What were your thoughts of his ways of how he would bring in people into his Four Horsemen?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that introduction with Storm was so strong because again, I saw her and I was like, "Oh my gosh, is that Storm?" And then it was, and that payoff was really satisfying. Uh, but that whole sequence of like him seeing this kid,
Mm-hmm.
this mutant kid getting harassed and being like, "What's up with that?" was like really, I think, foundational to the what's the word I'm looking for? The lens we view his character for
Sure,
the rest of the movie.
sure, sure.
Um, and so, yeah, I don't really remember much about who he brings in everybody else, but I do remember in the house,
Mm-hmm.
the scene with Storm and the Mystique poster on the wall because
Yes.
that was just such a foundational moment of like rel relating specifically to Raven as a
Mm-hmm.
character through this film, consistently being like, "I'm not a hero. I'm not here to save anyone. I'm not the good guy, blah, 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 blah." And for for her to be introduced as, like, Storm's hero and then see that redemption arc was a really
Correct.
cool
Yeah.
tie-in.
No, that I do agree with you. I think that the two strongest people that he brings in, of course, is the Eric and of course Storm. I think those are the ones that I felt like had the deeper
Mhm.
connections. I feel like with the introduction of Angel and Psylocke, they're just more of just like tag-alongs, or just like, oh, you have power, therefore I want power, or you could fix my broken wing and give me metal wings. Which I'll talk about that for a second. Man, what a
I
waste.
mean, yeah, Psylocke was awesome, she was badass,
She
she
was
looked
cool.
hot, like, what more could you want?
There you go.
Uh, Angel was there.
Angel was there, and he had metal hands, or metal, not hands. I'm sorry,
Metal wings.
metal wings. Which, you know, as someone who, at least the only thing I know about Angel specifically is this connection that he has with Apocalypse and turning into this archangel. I just didn't. I wish they could have
Mhm.
put more into that, but really, he just at the end of the day is just a low level goon. Which, you know, I find a little unfortunate. Specifically, that character apparently has more relevance in the comic books itself, but what you gonna do? There's also a secondary villain in this story, which we didn't necessarily need, but they're there. And of course, I'm talking about our boy William Stryker is back yet
Oh,
again.
yeah.
And
I did the only note I put in, my notes, it was just, "Goddamn Stryker."
I know. And it's not Mystique Stryker from the last movie, which we never got a resolution for. It's just whatever, that happens. Okay, fine.
Whatever.
But we'll get past that. But yeah, we have Stryker, and then
I
of
think we
course,
need a
Mhm.
Stryker tally for all the different Strikers we've seen
That's.
over the course of the series.
I mean, yeah, that's. I mean, I think I can do it. I think I can do it in my hand right now. It's of course Stryker from 2, Stryker from X-Men Origins Wolverine, and then the last 2 movies had Stryker. So about four major appearances of the Strike Man himself. Which I'm shocked that he's not a card in Marvel Snap. Now that I think about it, why isn't William Stryker make that happen? Marvel Snap. Ben,
Mhm.
Uncle Ben's apparently a card, and I still have not getting him. But yeah, I guess Stryker a card. Ultimately, the whole excuse for this is just so that way we have a diversion for the most part, and then also Wolverine. Like I think that's the main
Mhm.
thing. Which, what is your thoughts on that specifically with Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Wolverine. It's a little interesting to see them as children and Wolverine there, in the context that we know of them greatly from the series. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that specifically?
Yeah, my favorite X-Men throuple. Um, it was interesting to see their dynamic in this with, them as children and
Yeah,
Logan as without his memories, kind of feral.
yeah.
It
But
was fun.
Bucky naked as well was real. Oh Lord. Oh yeah, that happened.
Yeah, I low-key forgot that the whole explosion, kidnapping to, room where they have to be rescued, Stryker base, etc. was a whole plot line in this movie.
Yeah,
But yeah, that was a thing that happened.
that did happen. Yeah, and then suddenly they're in Egypt. And then we're all doing this part.
They were-
Yeah, which we of course we didn't mention. The mansion blows up yet again. At this point, we lose actually a key character from the series so far. We lose Alex Summers. I know. How'd you feel about that as one of the returning members of the first class?
I really hated that we didn't get a moment to process that.
Yeah.
Like it was explosion, Quicksilver, the car driving up to the back from the mall,
Yes.
which was
Which
a
is
whole
another
thing.
scene they cut out of the movie, and I don't know why. It's awesome. Oh, that drives me nuts.
Please.
Yes.
But yeah, we just have Quicksilver incredible montage. We'll talk about it
We'll talk
later.
about that later.
At the end of it, and then it's just Scott saying, like, where's my brother?
Hmm.
And, Peter being like, I think I got everybody. And then we just hard cut to the next scene.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're not going to give me time to process that you just killed off Alex? Like, what
Yeah.
the fuck?
No, they're gonna treat him just like all the other characters they killed off screen.
That was definitely one of my biggest gripes with this movie.
Yeah. No, I agree. As I didn't have a whole lot of reference for Alex, but I love the fact that he was part of that team, and for him to also appear in the last movie for a small second, which was nice. For him, I thought he would have a central role in this. Ultimately, just to be fodder for what ends up happening.
I mean, they do fridge him for a really great conversation in the jet.
Sure,
And I
yeah,
get that. I needed them to give me a moment to process
yeah.
the heartbreak. Because while you might not have an emotional connection to Alex Summers as a character, boy does he show up in a lot of fanfics.
I guess I'm not up on my Alex Summers lore. I gotta go check that out. Oh man. Okay.
With that.
With that, before I move on to the final battle, let's actually, since we touched upon him, of course, Quicksilver is back in this movie. He is 10 years theoretically older in this, even though
Theoretically.
you can't tell for any of these characters how old they are because they age like fine wine, which is absolutely wonderful. But of course, he still lives in his mom's basement. But he's getting out in the world, and he's gonna finally figure out what's going on with him, and potentially talk to who we now know is his father. Of course. By the way, I'm reading our document here, and it says the comic book characters. I spelled so many names wrong. Oh yeah. Never mind. But yes,
It's just for us. Nobody has to read it.
That's fine. That's fine. You'll never know how I spelled Apocalypse or Magneto. What are your thoughts on Quicksilver in this film so far?
Yeah. Every iteration of Quicksilver is
Yeah.
kind of just there.
Yeah.
I would like our audience to know I have finally figured out the difference between Silver Surfer and Quicksilver. Be so proud of me.
Well, it's like a
Yeah,
card game and a couple movies.
we got there eventually. That's all that matters. Every time we see Quicksilver, he's not given a lot
Yeah.
besides cool action sequences. performances. And if that's the only role he's gonna serve for a movie, okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
Like background, I do know, like comics wise, that Pietro and Wanda are twins and
Yes.
Magneto's their father, and that's the whole thing in that universe. And so him, like Eric being his dad, was not a surprise.
Mhm.
Here, I do really appreciate how that played into the final battle.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it's a stretch that that was the motivation for him to join,
Yes.
and I get why they did it that way. It just didn't feel very strong to me.
Gotcha. Moving on to the last half of the film, essentially, which is the big climactic battle. We, of course, have Magneto, Psylocke, Angel, and Storm. Magneto. I'm sorry, Magneto. I said so many times. Apocalypse going into Egypt after kidnapping our boy Professor X, because they're going to use his ability. Which Professor X is just a conduit to all evil stuff. So I don't know, man. You might have to die. I'm sorry. Like a lot of terrible stuff happens because you're around, and I don't know, man. I don't know. But the whole plan, obviously, is just to have Professor X do the whole thing, similar to actually what they did in 2, which I thought was interesting, where,
The
yeah.
whole world projection moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then, of course, our heroes have to go save him, and Raven has to step up as a leader, and Jean Grey and all of them have to put on some cool-ass outfits and go do some fighting, and it's a fight. It's an actual fight.
Mhm.
The conversations, I think, with Professor X and Magneto are pretty strong in this point, because this is like the first time that we get to see them together, and another 10 years, another 10-year decade that we've now learned of them, and it's all ultimately very sweet, and sad, and all together
They
all at
act
once.
so divorced.
So divorced.
Like,
Yeah, I do agree now. Yeah.
yeah. I do want to say Raven's performance
Hmm.
and like what they gave her in this movie, I think is the strongest we've seen of her, and I really loved her character in this movie, which was great
Yeah.
because we've had some definitely
Yeah.
not great stories for her
Yeah.
up
Agreed.
until this point.
That is 100% agreed, and it's so interesting because I don't know why I feel like I put this lock on the Mystique character, because in my mind she's a villain, but they've clearly
Mhm.
were like, Jennifer Lawrence is a popular star, so we're gonna have to make her the forefront of their series, and I guess eventually I'm gonna have to let that go, because that's what happened.
Mhm.
This character is not a bad person; they are just in a place where they just can't see themselves, or don't, or the society can't see themselves, and so they lash out. Ultimately, they
Mhm.
now see themselves as the hero in this moment, and therefore they're going to be the self-sacrificing person. I think that's wonderful. And so, yeah, I think Jennifer Lawrence does do that pretty well in this series. And then that starts the turn of Storm sort of switching sides as
Mhm.
well, because Apocalypse is full on just killing his own kind in his own way.
Going for it.
Yeah, just straight going for it.
Yeah.
While the world's like all exploding around, there's jets and bombs and all types of stuff. I guess.
We get some
Mhm.
great kind of sarcastic bridge destruction imagery.
Yes,
They love a bridge
they love a
imagery
bridge.
in this
They
series.
love
I feel
it.
like every single movie has had a bridge being destroyed,
Yes.
a bridge being moved around. Something happening with a bridge happens every single time.
Every time, every movie, they have to have Magneto move something bigger and bigger and bigger. So they can't. They have to keep escalating it, and it's pretty fun. I do like that specifically. I'm not sure if that in this battle, is it, if I remember correctly, Angel dies. Does he get blown up or something? I don't know.
I don't
Everyone gets
remember him
hurt.
coming out of. Everybody gets a little fucked up.
Yeah.
I don't remember anybody like super dying
Yeah,
in
I'm trying to
but also
remember.
it's been a week and I don't
That's fair. I'm like 2 months
remember.
removed from this movie, and like in my mind, it's like, man, Angel was so just there. Other than he has a
He's
cool
just there.
Master of Puppets moment where he gets the metal wings. But that's about it. That's literally just for imagery's sake. But yeah, no. Ultimately, I mean, Psylocke. Again, we mentioned Psylocke's in this movie. Psylocke is just there to be kicking ass, doing things. They don't really have much to do, which is sad because I think during the promotion of this movie,
Kicking ass, doing things,
That's right.
being hot.
That's right.
The Holy Trinity.
There you go. That's all you need. What, what is the TikTok thing? Is like there are only like 3 subclasses or something like that. It's like slut, loser, and something else. Like, yeah, everyone's got space there.
That audio.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I did have a note about the Mind Palace fight.
Oh, that's
as
right.
I dubbed the battle within Charles and Apocalypse's mind.
Is that
that
just
was
Apocalypse
something.
saying you're gay? You're gay.
It's the whole Charles getting thrown around the mansion.
Yes.
And then being like, Jean, do the thing. And then Jean's a badass. And it's great. And we love to see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was fun to see the like final battle in Egypt and also the Mind Palace battle and how they cut back and forth between the two.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, giving at least, I think, because in the reality, Xavier's not doing anything. He's laying down on a table, losing his powers.
Yeah, he's just conked out.
Just knocked out. So for him to have some involvement in the story is good in that moment, of course. So I do pretty much like that. And then, as you pointed out, Jean Grey saves the day with a massive explosion that incinerates Apocalypse into so many pieces. It's like, you will never come back. I don't care how much healing power you have. And then we basically start wrapping up the story. Everyone becomes friends again. Moira's in this movie. We didn't even talking about Moira.
Moira's great in this movie. I love everything about her. I screamed when she was in the opening. Everything with Charles being a bubbling idiot around her. Everything with Moira is, I love to see her.
Yeah. Glad that she came back for specifically the few cameos that she has in this movie. And I guess in the final battle for the most part. But yeah, shout out to the Moira.
I do have a question for you.
Yes.
What the hell is Essex Corp?
Ooh.
Is this the thing I should know?
Actually, you would know this because you probably play a lot of Marvel Snap, and you know the character Mr. Sinister.
Okay.
So Essex Corp is owned by Mr. Sinister, if I'm not mistaken. They'll have some connective tissues in Logan that we will, of course, be delving in soon. But ultimately, it's a storyline that I think does get left on the table because after this, we do get Dark Phoenix. And then that's really about it. So we get a little tendrils, like I said, in Logan's. But other than that, they kind of leave Mr. Sinister out of this universe. Hopefully with MCU, we get Mr. Sinister. That'd be really cool. We'll see. But if that answers
That's the little
post-credits
teaser for the next one, which was so funny. At the opening of this movie, I was like, oh yeah, the previous one had that end credit in the desert. And I was like, what the fuck is happening?
That's right.
So I'll be excited to get the little payoff of Essex Corp in the next one.
There you go. So stay tuned for that. This, of course, not just our discussion of it. We actually had a guest that came through. I actually recorded a couple months ago with Jacob McCourt, who, of course, is a wonderful, wonderful creator out there. He's doing his own thing. And right now, we're going to cut to his thoughts of this movie as well. Thank you. And to past Mario. Take it off to you. Hello. Welcome back to this special edition to this episode. Of course, Sly is not here. I'm joined by another member in the vast multiverse. I'm, of course, talking about Jacob McCourt, who is a producer / host on some shows like Left Behind Game Club, host of the Game Trivia Show, and talks on films like on cutscenes of video game movie podcast.
Yep.
What are those things? Go ahead and expound.
So hello, thank you for having me. I do a lot of things in the games content multiverse, if you will. The Left Behind Game Club is a bi-weekly video game book club podcast. There are tons of them. We try and keep it positive, informative, and what is it? Informative, entertaining, mostly positive in most cases.
Yeah.
So that's what we do there. Cutscenes is a seasonal video game, TV, and movie podcast. I'll just say it here. We're going to do a watch along with The Last of Us. So coming back for a 4th season on that starting in January. And then I host video game trivia, which has been on YouTube and at PAX. So thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about X-Men Apocalypse.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining us. Of course, throughout this journey that me and Sly has gone through, we've gone through so many now iterations of X-Men movies. We've gone to the original 3 that came out, the spin-offs, of course, with X-Men or Lord and Savior X-Men Origins Wolverine, which, our favorite, as we love on the show. No, we hate that movie. We've now crossed over with Deadpool, who finally has got a redemption arc in a lot of ways. And now we're here in the new frontier of X-Men Apocalypse, which of course, depending on how this is Mari, by the way, this is Mari from Days of Future Past. The other half of this podcast is not recorded yet. Who knows what I said in that episode, but I'll tell you right now, I don't like this movie. But still, Jacob, tell me your history with the X-Men movies, and then as well as your history with this movie.
Yeah. So right before we started recording, I'd said, hey, I've watched everything in the mainline MCU, but then there are the films that are like now being brought into the MCU that I'm not as familiar with, or ones that are like, maybe they'll come into play later. So the X-Men movies are that. So I've actually only seen X-Men 2 or X2, X-Men The Last Stand, and then I've seen the New Class, and I've seen X-Men Origins Wolverine and the Deadpool movies. So it's very spotty. So let me tell you, having that view history coming into this movie, boy, oh boy, was it a ride.
I bet, because definitely, let alone the timeline of these movies are absolutely all over the place. So for you to have any context, especially this movie, and I'm sure I'll go with that with Sly. There's a lot of characters that are here that are also later in time, theoretically, and it doesn't make sense. But you know what? Okay. In the quick rundown that you gave about all the movies you watched, did you say you did see the original X-Men at least? Or did you skip past that one? I've
seen X2 and The Last Stand, not the first one.
That sucks because that is the movie we love the most still.
So I need to watch is what you're saying. Okay.
I would say, okay. So obviously with the journey with the show, Sly is watching it for the first time. I've seen these previously, but what has been nice has been re-contextualizing them in a way that I wasn't set up with expectations because these were the only things we had at the time. Now I live past with MCU and everything. So I get to just enjoy them as like, are they a good movie and a good film? And X-Men, the original, the 2001, is a good movie. Like by itself, like just hands down, good plot development, stories, characters. You care about the things and then move on. Then you're like, we're going to franchise this thing and then we got to keep escalating it. And it gets, it gets kind of wonky from there. But about this movie, what were your thoughts? We're going to go ahead and go right into our Stanley seminar right here. What are your thoughts on this movie?
So again, I'm taking the perspective of someone who, this movie now came out 6 years ago. And so I'm taking the perspective of maybe my parents who one day pop on, Fox or ABC and this movie is just on and they decide to watch it with something on in the background. That's the perspective I'm taking of just coming into this movie with a little bit of knowledge, but not all the knowledge. And I have a lot of questions. One, first off, so Oscar Isaac, I guess, is only allowed to play Egyptian characters in the MCU. I guess that's my big first question. Only Moon Knight and Apocalypse, and that's it.
Hispanic actor Oscar Isaac can only
Guatemalan plays Egyptians only. And look, this is what I knew about the movie going in because I was a huge fan of Olivia Munn back in like the G4 days. So all I knew was, hey, Olivia Munn's Psylocke in this movie. Maybe it'll be cool. And we are kind of treated when the movie starts with just like so much like setup of like ancient Egypt. Why are we thousands of years ago? Who is this blue man? Why is he getting powers? I don't understand, but hey, I'm here for it. And then they also expect you to like, should I watch the other movies? Maybe, but there's you need to know a lot about what's going on in the X-Men universe to understand what's going on in this movie. They kind of give you hints if you haven't watched everything, but I felt like I did myself a disservice not watching everything that came before this.
Honestly, I don't necessarily think so, because even as someone who just, like I said, our director, we're going through, movie by movie. We've made it to, I think it's the nexus point for X-Men, which of course is Day of Future Past, where the two timelines converge, and now we're creating something new. So you are supposed to jump into this and be a new viewer or new experience to this, and possibly leave alone, obviously, the other things that you have seen. So like characters like Angel can exist in 1980 and be a full-grown ass adult, and possibly a different language. Either way, who loves Metallica, by the way? That's a cool one. Versus Ben Foster in 2005, who's like timid about needles. Those could be two separate characters now, and that I think that is fine. But I will say, you're absolutely correct. The beginning of this movie of trying to piece together like where are we in place in time? I guess we are in Egypt because I see pyramids. So okay, great. Yeah. But also, what's the context of these four people around this room and all that? And obviously, as X-Men fans, if you are an X-Men, by the way, quick question: your history with X-Men entirely? Like, have you watched the animated series? Did you read comic books ever? Do you have some aspects of who Apocalypse is before this?
No, so my co-host on Cutscenes, his name is Travis. He is probably the biggest X-Men fan I have ever met in my life. Like, gets the comics every week, goes on Twitter to like X-Men hashtags to see what people are saying about X-Men. He's going to listen to this and just like yell at me the entire time.
Of course.
But I've seen a little bit of the animated series, and then obviously I've seen some of the movies, but I would say that like I was more of a DC kid growing up, that I watched like Batman the animated series, Superman the animated series, the Justice League. And so I would say that I could name a lot of X-Men characters, but diving deep into their histories and different storylines is not my bag.
No, that's fair. And then a lot of that is like having to understand who Apocalypse is, which we're supposed to be as the big bad of this movie. And I don't know if the movie does it, other than he's a bad enough guy where people have to like sacrifice themselves to kill. And I think most of his power really is just his name. And honestly, just because his name is something so catastrophic, and then we don't understand what his powers does or do. There are hints throughout it, obviously. But it does take the whole movie. But ultimately, I just think that the way that they're introducing this villain and how they did it was just not successful. Post the villain, though, what are your thoughts of where we are in the world of X-Men? I know, like I said, spotty history. What are your thoughts of meeting Xavier at this time? Meeting even Magneto, which I want to talk about Magneto specifically. Meeting, obviously, the kids. What are your thoughts on that?
I thought I was most, because I went in with like middling expectations here. I'm like, oh, this movie will be fine. And I think there were maybe one or two things that surprised me a lot, or the things that I really loved. And what surprised me was the depiction of Magneto and how like he is now far away from Xavier and the students, the X-Men. He's got a wife, he's got a kid, and he's working essentially in like a metal shop. And that to me was like surprising. But Michael Fassbender, what I appreciate is like full ass into every performance each time. I watched Assassin's Creed. I think that was Fassbender.
That is Fassbender.
Put his full ass into that, and I appreciate it. And he does the same thing here.
Yes. No, 100%. We'll go right into the Magneto section. That to me is definitely not the heart of the movie, because it's not even about this, but it's the heart that I think could have been a lot of the movie, specifically the scene that all leads up to, which of course is taking him back to Auschwitz. But ultimately, yes, I think Michael Fassbender puts his whole how can I say Michael Fassbussy in this thing, because he's emoting so hard. He's trying his best in a lot of ways, and I know that I'm not going to go too far, because I know you told me how close you are in this game, but in a lot of ways, God of War.
Let it rip if you want to spoil it.
No, God of War. I'm basically going to say.
Oh, God of War, yes.
God of War, in a similar trajectory of how that character goes, and so that's why I'm like, I'm fascinated to see this version of this character that now I've seen in so many iterations, to have some sort of joy, and then to see that completely ripped away from him, pretty in a hardcore scene, for the most part, especially since this is the first time he's also trying to show like, not forgiveness. What is the word I'm trying to say? But he's trying to help. in one moment
Yeah.
he saves someone, and that
Yeah.
costs a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, there's a metal worker in the shop where there's a large heavy thing that's about to fall on him, and Magneto, using his powers, like essentially has to like gesture to stop it and save him.
Yes.
And that's when he gets ratted out to the authorities, who then come after him because they realize, oh, you're not the man that we thought you were. You're actually Magneto, and we need to take you away. Like literally this scene in the forest, which is I think the highlight for me in the entire movie.
Yeah.
Of they come with bows and arrows, they come with no metal, and he at first is just like, I'm not gonna, like, I'll do whatever, this is fine, like we'll figure this out. And his daughter and wife are just slaughtered, because the daughter realizes that she has powers, uses them, she gets killed. I'm really going through it quickly, but
No,
that's
sure.
when he just like lets loose, because one of the police officers has like a metal badge on,
Yeah.
and essentially uses that metal badge, much like the Arrow character from Guardians.
Doyandu?
Yep, Doyandu
Yeah.
uses like that badge like Doyandu does.
That's right.
And kills everyone in sight.
Yeah, it's a crazy powerful scene, movie, and then you just understand where he is and why he would get suscepted into Apocalypse's like sort of ideas, and then I think the combination of that and a lot of that scene, which Jacob, if you go back to watch the original X-Men movie, which I mean you get a little bit of it obviously in X-Men First Class as well, where it is this sort of like. This is where his sort of coming out as Magneto, being in the thrust of the Holocaust, and it's awful. And for him to tear that place down is like an awesome emotional thing, and that is also a great way for him to be manipulated. So I do find that section of the movie to be really well, I wouldn't say thought out. I will say executed well. There are things about it that I still would like to change, but ultimately, yeah, I think. That is about where the heart of the movie goes, and then the rest is just everything else. It's
an action movie.
Yeah, it's like, hey, we have to have these fight scenes. We have to have a cage fight in Vienna, so we can introduce characters for later for reasons. And we go about this, and ultimately, the thing that. There's a lot of X-Men stuff in here. As someone who is an X-Men fan, to see the actual like. X-Mansion being used as much as it is, for them to sort of talk about the ideas of starting the X-Men. This is really, I guess, where the X-Men is supposed to start, like officially. I mean, they were like in the 60s doing the one mission, but this is when the X-Men like continue on, and then they are now a force for protecting the world. And I found that awesome, and I was hoping that they were going to do more with that, but I feel like we finally got that in the last 10 seconds. And the last 10 seconds is the biggest tease in the world as someone who is a massive X-Men the Animated Series fan. And that is just a bummer. It's so bad.
Now, are you talking about like the Essex, like the post-credit scene, or right before when they're like...
They all got awesome individual costumes with colors and like everything looks how I remember it, or at least...
Do you like my impression of it?
Yeah, I did. I like your impression.
Thank you.
In the small window that I have you in on the screen. But yeah, seeing Cyclops in the yellow, seeing Mystique in the whites, like sort of like garb, like everything. I did like the little teases throughout it. Like for instance, Nightcrawler wearing the Thriller jacket, which is like his red suit that he wears later, and just like that's awesome. But I wanted that to be the movie. I wanted like, hey, we're gonna do X-Men shit, and it really was just setting up. Just setting up this like villain that I just didn't find interesting, well thought out. Apparently there's a deleted scene in this movie where he's making everyone's outfits via needle. I think that would have been interesting. I just think I don't know why he has all this power in the world, but apparently he likes needling, so he like actually made their suits that way. I don't know. You should check that scene out.
Because his power is essentially like enabling others like latent abilities or weaker abilities to flourish, right? And a lot of this movie, to your point, was just him, finding Storm and just, making the latent powers within her, be more powerful, or finding Angel and, he's got one wing that's singed. And so now he's going to give him metal wings.
Yes.
I just felt like that whole scene could have been like a 1 minute montage, and we didn't need those scenes to be 2-3 minutes long where I'm just watching Angel get metal wings.
Yeah.
I'm like, why are we spending the time here when the interesting thing is actually like what happens after this fight, or like with the X-Men?
No, 100%. Like even so, This is a joke way back from the podcast. I'm a massive Cyclops fan. I love him. I had the goggles until he dies in the third one. I broke them. All right. I love Cyclops from all the way back from the animated series. And so this being like the sort of movie of him joining the X-Men. Oh man, if that was the movie, him like getting in and meeting Jean Grey and having those connections and bumping into Nightcrawler, and they go on those little fun like high school teen adventures, which there is a whole section that is also cut out of this movie where they go to the mall and they do they do the kids stuff, and that to me is like that is where the heart of the movie should have been, not necessarily seeing what Apocalypse is doing, because to me it wasn't as interesting, or at least it wasn't well presented in my way. Yeah.
Because the cast is like full of powerhouses that,
oh my god,
we've talked a little bit about Fassbender, but like, there are real actors in this movie that could have had a lot of. Oscar Isaac is a great actor.
Yes.
Apocalypse as a character is bad.
Yes. I do not recognize Oscar Isaac in that role whatsoever. And it's not because he has the makeup. He's just a character that I don't want to spend time with. Like that's
who could have been exchanged with any other actor who does like Chris Pine could have been Apocalypse.
Straight up.
I was gonna say who played Mario movie. What is his?
Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt could have been Apocalypse in this. You know what I mean? Like it's really exchangeable.
Yeah.
You're like, no.
Within this movie, yes.
It's a me.
Within this movie, absolutely. I do think that even Chris Pine at a certain point, I think he probably could have been way scarier and menacing, but yeah, for sure. But yeah, ultimately it just kind of goes to the wayside and just kind of sucks. Was there any other aspects? Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to tell you one thing that I really loved.
Okay.
My favorite part of the movie, we talked about the first favorite part. My other favorite part is these Sweet Dreams by the Eurythmics, like montage with Quicksilver. Such a treat.
Yes. Evan Peters in this movie, as well as how he was in Days of Future Past, still elevates the Quicksilver character for me. I never had like a fondness for him in other media. This is definitely something one of this sort of like quirky, sort of like not ready to grow up Peter Pan kid, just because he can move. He doesn't want to move. He moves too fast, but he's also trying to like keep at his pace. And I think that's just such an interesting version of that character. And then yes, that scene of course is great, because as a fan of the 80s and fan of the Rhythmics, having that be your song as he is basically going through the exploding mansion, absolutely, I thought was like, yep, that's how you go next level to what you did previously. And I thought that they at least did a good job there for sure. I will say that then culminates with a whole other side plot that I didn't know why it was shoved in this movie, and that of course is Stryker shows up. And they decide, that happens.
Why?
Yeah, just like, all right, cool. Just and it just makes more problems, because you said you saw Days of Future Past. Is that correct?
Yep.
Do you remember the end of Days of Future Past?
No.
The end of Days of Future Past is everything's back to normal, or now that heroes that we thought are dead are back and are in the future or whatever. But they cut back to Wolverine when at the end of Days in the 60s timeline, he's strapped to a thing because Magneto like put him on and he went into the water.
Yep.
He's being extracted out of the water, and you see Stryker basically above him, just sort of like, okay, cool, this is going to be Weapon X basically. But there's a glimpse of the eyes change, and it's actually Mystique.
Okay.
And then what happened?
Then nothing happens with that.
Nothing happens with that, because you get this movie, and Wolverine is still a weapon with Stryker. Weird. Like, I don't know.
They get captured by Stryker. They're in the same facility as Wolverine. Wolverine escapes in the forest, and like, that seems just like a plot device to, like, maybe they didn't want Wolverine to be captured, so they needed to let him out. But instead of just doing it at the beginning of one movie, when you decided to pivot when a new writer takes over, you decide to make it like a central plot in your movie for some reason.
For some odd reason. But that whole section of the movie to me just like, it also retreaded just a little too much on past stuff. Like I was like saying, I want them to just move forward. And then for them to have Stryker in this facility, which is clearly Alkali Lake, and all this other stuff's like, all right, we've seen this already. We need to move on. Like there's just nothing forward momentum with this show, with this series, other than for some reason every movie likes to just age it 10 years up. So like the last movie of course was the 70s. The other one before that was the 60s. And so that's the only progression that we're getting, and the characters are staying the fucking same. And yeah, I saw my cat, by the way, just floating behind me. That was cool. But yeah, I don't know. I really wish that they could have just handled a lot of the aspects of this movie well, and it just to me falls flat on its face in a lot of ways.
Didn't they also, like, when the Wolverine thing happens, like stare into the camera and just basically go like, "I hope that's the last we've seen of that guy"?
Basically, well,
Cool.
the best part about it is, of course, it's Cyclops who, you know, he's always hitting on his girl. So even though it's weird because it's like older dude and like younger Jean Grey, it doesn't matter. Don't even think about it. Just don't even think about it. What are your thoughts when the we'll talk a little bit, I guess, about the Four Horsemen, which we talked about. It's Angel, Storm, and it's Psylocke, and then Magneto is the big piece because he's the one that's sort of bringing a lot of destruction to the world, being able to be metal to totally do what he wants with it. What were your thoughts on their individual stories? I mean, obviously we get very little of two of them, but in terms of Storm in this movie, because ultimately she has like the face turn at the end to help them fight. Like, what are your thoughts?
Wrestling good, yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, huge wrestling. I'm wearing a Kenny Omega shirt right now as we speak.
I love it.
So
I love it.
Yeah.
I just Storm's background just seemed, and you can correct me, and if it's in some canon, it is canon, but this Storm storyline seemed quite random. Of Apocalypse finding Storm in a market, and essentially she saves him. They run away. She gets powers because she was helpful to him.
Yeah, and
Is
watch
that
him commit
canon
murder
anywhere else?
No.
Yeah.
So, well, the canon that I understand is she is actually, I believe, in some province of Africa, and then if I'm not mistaken, she is found by Professor X. And that's usually how the story goes. This is me going back from like the X-Men cartoon. I don't know if it is in the comic books, but I just know that I remember scenes of her like trying to discover her powers in Africa and then being rescued by Professor X. So this is sort of like the reverse of that, where it's the bad guy finds her, and I think that's possibly due to a lot of the fact that the timeline is different now. So I think that is probably how that is described. So. But the part to me that loses me immediately is like when she sees him just like straight like melt people into walls, and I'm like, I don't want to be anywhere near that guy.
Yeah,
I'm kind of
here's my question.
Yeah.
Do you think that the face turn was earned at all?
Other than, I'm trying to. It's been a little while since I've seen the movie, because I remember there is a moment we do cut to Storm when Apocalypse is doing something, and I'm thinking that she's not totally on board at that point. Oh, you know what it was? I know exactly what it was. She does, and this is the stuff that I like that they layered in, and they're layering history from the movies, is that Mystique in this film has become a hero, has become essentially a figurehead for people that are wanting to, like, hey, if she's a hero, we can do this cause, she's part of the cause, basically. And so when Apocalypse is attacking her, that's when I see her start to like put the pieces together that she might be on the wrong side. And I think that ultimately I think does give her the out for being, you know what, I'm gonna help the other team, and hopefully they'll take me in, even though we definitely killed a lot of people.
Yeah, but it's funny that like you have to really think back to like, was it earned? Did she have justification for moving the other team besides like, oh, Apocalypse, now I know, despite him giving me powers, is actually terrible? Again, a lot of it's middling. It's just like, there are high points, but a lot of it's just like, was it earned? And probably not. And again, I'm coming in again from like a person who's not seen every single movie. You have, so maybe there's payoffs that I'm not seeing, but Apocalypse and Storm are new to this movie, so maybe not.
No, I like I said, I think a lot of it is very much vaguely veiled in like a sentence or two, or having a poster of Mystique in her room. But ultimately, it's, I would say, character-wise, for what they just did, and a lot of it is also, again, back to the beginning, the misunderstanding of what Apocalypse's powers are, because in this movie, I don't know why Cyclops is doing any of the things she's doing, and why Angel's involved other than he has metal wings. Are they just helping him because they gave him cool shit? In my mind, in the comic books or in the cartoons, I always thought that he actually plagued your mind and like took you over. Like, as Wolverine becomes one of these characters at some point. Angel is, his whole thing is that he has a second personality, and that personality is the metal version of himself. So that's why I don't understand. Are they a free will of doing this and committing crimes, or are they clouded? They don't do a great job of illustrating that, and I think that's what makes this movie worse.
I had to look at the Wikipedia page when I was putting my notes together and be like,
Yeah.
what are his powers exactly? Because he
Yes.
reminds me of an anime villain in a lot of ways.
He
like
is.
reminded me,
If you watch
could be
My
in
Hero Academia, yep.
Yes.
Yes.
I literally wrote Apocalypse is like an MHA villain in my
Yeah,
notes.
straight
so
up.
could fit. He has a variety of destructive superhuman abilities, including telekinesis, cyberpathy, teleportation, and the
Okay.
ability to augment other mutants' abilities. Isaac described him as creative / destructive force of the earth.
Okay. Great.
Seems ambiguous.
See, yeah, exactly. So, and I guess they can play with that, but at the same time, the few things that they do answer, there are things that are still I'm still left questioning. But yeah, other than that, yeah, for sure.
And then we learn that really the whole crux of everything that Apocalypse is trying to do is he's trying to get Xavier's powers,
Yes.
or essentially transfer his consciousness into Xavier's body, so that much like a My Hero Academia, certain villain,
Yeah.
get more powers that will help him become more powerful and take over like humanity, or enslave humanity rather.
Yeah, which essentially is the role I guess Oscar Isaac played, which was a body that he could transfer to so he couldn't be harmed or something like that. I think that's a big of it. So yeah, I mean that's something we definitely infer for sure. Again, this is not the first time we've used Xavier to do exact damage to the world. So it's just like, again, we're treading on the same shit. This is of course X2 that I'm referring to. Yeah, I just wish that a lot of this was just a lot more fleshed out, and just I don't know. I get the ideas, especially how they're trying to do with like redoing a whole world and with the bombs and everything going into the sky. Like this, that was definitely a big part of the time frame of what they were doing. But at the same time, man, I just wish there was a lot more to it. Other than
Somehow
there
this
was.
movie was 144 minutes.
It's the longest X-Men movie, by the way.
And it's funny because usually with these
Yeah.
long films, you can take away like, oh yes, this happened and this major thing and this, but a lot of it's like, I think it does a lot of setup for Dark Phoenix.
Yes. Yeah,
but
generally.
And when we talk it through, of course we're gonna hit all the major points in it.
Mhm.
But I think when you take this away and you're like, oh, I'm gonna talk to like one of my normie friends about X-Men Apocalypse, there are very few things that I'm going to remember except
Yeah.
Oscar Isaac blew and bad, and he tried to get Xavier power, and Xavier bald now. And that's X-Men Apocalypse.
Yeah, Quicksilver, Sweet Dreams. That's it. It's literally like as much as I'll get out of it. I 100% agree with that for sure. All right. Well, I think that's going to be our general thoughts, because if I just keep thinking about this movie, I'm just going to get madder. You know what? And I thank you so much for joining me, obviously, on this conversation. I wish we had picked a better movie for you, as I always I wish for all of our guests, to be totally honest. But this is the journey, and this is where we're on. So again, Jacob, thank you so much for being here.
Jean Grey made fire.
Jean Grey did make fire. You know who was also in this movie, and we haven't mentioned yet? Moira McTaggart, who
Yeah.
she's here.
Yep.
We got her. She's back. You know?
Yep.
Cool. Is she in the next one? I don't even remember. I've seen it. I don't even remember if she's in the next one.
Jubilee.
Jubilee has a line in the movie, and that is it. That is she's played by, oh my god, I forgot the name of the actress.
Lana Condor.
Lana Condor from those oh my god, what is the name of the movies now? There's a trilogy.
All the Boys.
To All the Boys. And she's very great in that movie, so I feel robbed of having her.
She's also in that movie with Cole Sprouse.
Oh, yes, I know what you're talking
where they
about.
go to space. Moonshot.
Yes, Moonshot. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, all the things we are possibly robbed. There's also in the when they're in the mall, there's apparently there's supposed to be like a Dazzler thing, and I'm like, oh, it'd be kind of cool if we had Dazzler in this movie, but I don't know. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We're just gonna get them wearing cool costumes for a screenshot, and then in the next movie, they're gonna just be wearing blue and yellow. So don't worry. Don't worry. But again, Jacob, where can people find you on the net? I need to let them know. I need to let the people know where they can find you.
You can find me at the cinema watching X-Men Apocalypse. Thank you. No, I'm kidding. You can find me on the internet at Jacob McCourt, JACOBMCCOURT. I'm on Twitter for now. I'm on Hive Social, maybe, if it's back up by now. But yeah, that's probably where you can find me. And again, I host 3 shows, the Left Behind Game Club and Cutscenes, you can find on podcasting services everywhere. And then I host video game trivia pretty regularly on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Jacob McCourt. I'm Jacob McCourt everywhere. Branding, baby.
Yeah, that's as you should. I am, of course, that Mar Rivera everywhere on the Twitter, so please find me basically
Got it back!
Yeah,
You
yeah.
got it back!
I did get it back. That's right. But am I going to lose it again? Who knows?
Probably.
Who knows?
Probably.
I was thinking about getting spicy and posting Taylor Swift music on my timeline again, but you know what? I'm not going to do that.
Don't do it. What have we learned?
Yeah,
Don't do it.
That's right. That's character growth. That is character growth. I will not be doing that. I will not be doing that again. But otherwise, until meantime, back to the main episode. And well, wasn't that a lovely conversation that I had with Jacob? Just so wonderful. I hopefully you get to watch it when the episode comes out.
So great.
Oh man. Moving on, we are going to go actually straight to Music Room because we got to talk about the Quicksilver scene. We have to talk about Evan Peters and his big moment. Of course, we had one in the last one, which was really great. We really loved that scene. Sly, what did you think of this version and the song specifically chosen?
The Sweet Dreams needle drop
Yeah.
was a moment. It was great. It really matched the tone and the energy
Mhm.
of what was going on. I thought it was fun. It was great. I do, as we previously mentioned, resent the end of that scene
Yes, of
a
course.
lot, and that soured it a little bit. But if we're ignoring like the very end of that scene, the imagery of like all the different ways he gets people out of the mansion, the like throwing people out the window, the like fascinating, the like
Like the
like
blankets.
linens for
Yeah,
like a
yes.
cushion or whatever, wrapping
right.
them in blankets.
Mhm.
All of the little bits were just so funny and brilliant, and like of course that's what he would do, and I thought that was really fun to see a less combat take on how he
Correct.
uses his powers. Was
Correct.
really interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely added up more to the comedy to the moment, especially with the dog introduction, with the dog just looking absolutely crazy. But yeah, the needle drop with it being an 80s song, that is like one of my favorite songs of all time, the Eurythmics, Sweet Dreams. So for their inclusion as part of this slow down scene, it's kind of cool how upbeat the song is in comparison. But yeah, and I love the final moment of him like couch surfing. While like holding the dog, I think, and like going through, like absolutely an iconic scene. It's what you make X-Men movies now, is to have a cool Quicksilver scene. And I'm trying to remember if Dark Phoenix has one or not, but I don't know. We'll have to find out. I'm just gonna have to find out.
We'll see when we get there.
All right, so you know what we are gonna do for the final segment here? We're gonna do some quiz time, which of course we're going to talk about a few things that happened and see if Sly can get some match of points this week. Of course, those are our questions. The first question that we always ask, is Stan Lee in this movie? Is he in this movie?
Yes.
Is he?
I don't remember seeing him,
Oh?
but I did. Okay.
Uh-huh.
I got to read my notes
Okay.
beat for beat. I said, oh shit, Cerebro. I'm guessing that's the like overload
Uh-huh.
explosion moment.
Mm-hmm.
Then I wrote, hi Stan, exclamation mark. And then I wrote, the Sweet Dreams needle drops though. So I'm guessing he's somewhere in between the explosion and the montage, maybe in the montage, but he's there according to my notes.
To be honest with you, I could have swore, God, you know, I think he isn't actually in there. But now, since I wrote this about a couple months ago, I can't remember. And I'm going to have to look that up again. But I'm pretty sure he's not. I think there was a funny reason. And I want to say it was because they were filming in Australia, and he was like, fuck that. Because he's done this before. When he's been like, nah, I'm just going to say no.
Yeah.
But, oh man, if you think you saw him, then I'm gonna have to research that for myself. You know what? You get a point anyways, because clearly I didn't do my notes, and I'm going to have to figure that out for myself. So you get a point right off the bat.
Again, I don't remember seeing him. My notes said I saw him.
Hey, you know what? The notes don't lie. All right? The notes don't lie. Oh man. Okay, here's a good one. There is a quick blink and you miss it cameo at the fight in Berlin. There is a challenger being dragged from the cage. Who was that mutant? Hint: they previously had an appearance in their Lord and Savior X-Men Origins. Wolverine.
Fuck. I told you we should just do the quiz time. And then didn't think to look at the questions before I agreed to that. What was his name? It was the boxer dude from Origins. God. What was his name? Oh, Logan called him Bub, and then he's like, "Did you call me Blob?"
Yep.
Blob. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We got there eventually.
You got there. Damn, that's how. Damn, you remember that movie more than me.
I don't remember a lot of that movie. I don't know how I remember that scene specifically.
Oh, yes. That, of course, is a fun little cameo for the Blob, who shows up in this movie for a small little cameo, which I thought was really fun. Yeah. Last question, of course, is Peter Maximoff, a.k.a. Quicksilver, is the son of Eric Lencher, a.k.a. Magneto. In real life, Evan Peters is only blank years younger than Michael Fassbender. Can you guess the age difference between these two characters? Which, you know, this series loves to play fast and loose with how old they are.
Yeah, here's the thing. I also don't know how old anybody is ever. I think internet don't come at me if I get any of these wrong. Michael Fassbender's in his 40s?
I'll give you that.
I think.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah.
Okay.
Can you give me a year
And
specific?
I think Evan Peters is in his 30s.
That is correct. That is correct. He is in his 30s.
Okay. So
yeah.
5, 10 years?
They are exactly
somewhere in there.
No, you're right. They are exactly 10 years apart. Michael Fassbender
really?
Michael Fassbender is 45. Evan Peters is 35. And that is his son.
Incredible.
Yes. Oh, they just don't fucking care, this movie series. Which is fine. That is fine. It is what it is. It's movie making. But yeah, there you go. You nailed it. You got a perfect score. Shout out to you for the X-Men Apocalypse perfect score. You get an A+. And yeah, that basically wraps it on up over here for X-Men Origins 2016. We're gonna go ahead and move on to Homeroom and our final thoughts of the movie. Sly, what is your final send off for this film? Will you be watching it again? I'm curious about that. Would you be watching it again?
I'll probably watch it again. Here's the thing. Lately, I've been really enjoying watching like things that I don't have to A, make content about, or B, have any critical thoughts about. And now that making content about this is over, I won't have to worry about it on the next watch.
Yes.
And I think this will be a really great, like, no thoughts revisit for me. So I definitely think I'll watch this movie again. Like I said at the top, I loved this movie. I loved, seeing the characters we all know and love, like Eric and Moira and all of them.
Yes.
Raven, every single one of her pieces of dialogue was iconic. She had some incredible one-liners. So fun, and to see her character as they developed throughout this movie was great. And like I said earlier, it felt so low stakes for an end of the world movie. I mean, comparatively, it felt really chill. So yeah, I really love this movie. I'll definitely revisit it. And I had a great time with this.
Okay. All right. I'm comfortable never seeing this movie again, but at the same time, it's not the worst thing. Again, Revisiting all these movies, my biggest takeaway is that these are not the worst things on the planet. If you were to watch this on television, it's totally fine to just chill and just have that play in the background. There are worse things, as we always point out. The Punisher. Don't watch The Punisher. That's the only one I'm specifically targeting. Do not watch that. But this one is an absolutely just, it is what it is. It adds, I think, very little to the characters overall, other than general relationships with certain ones. Like we stand it out with like Michael Fassbender's Magneto and stuff like that. But yeah, I just think that the biggest crime that this movie commits, and we didn't talk about it during the main segment, but I'm going to bring it up now. The biggest crime that this movie commits is the fact that we get the iconic X-Men outfits in the last 2 seconds of the goddamn movie, and we never see those again. I'll spoil that right now. Never see those again. We get the iconic X-Men like Cyclops with the blue fucking thing and the white and the purple and the yellow. Oh my god, so good. Even Raven has her iconic white suit that like she turns blue in, and that pisses me off. But yeah, that's my crime against this film, and so therefore it shall burn in hell. Nothing, just kidding. All right, well, that has been X-Men Apocalypse. Of course, tune in for next time when, of course, we're going to be talking about Logan, which is our homework. We're going to be watching the supposed final Wolverine film, but of course, we know that's bullshit now. But, hey.
He's going to be in Deadpool, right? We'll see him again.
We'll see. But yeah, we're going to be talking about
I'm very excited to talk about Logan. All I know about it is that it's like the end movie for his character, and that people call it like cinema. And I have no idea anything else about this movie, so I'm excited.
I'm excited because I've not watched this movie since the theaters. I've only watched it once, but I remember leaving such a remarkable thing on me. But I'm very much excited to see this again. And not cry. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. We'll see if that actually works. Sly, is there anything you would like to plug along the way as we send it off?
Yeah, of course, you can find me, as per usual, on the internet at ClycloneMC. You can find me on Thirsty Thursdays. You can find me on We'll Throw the After Party when we return from hiatus. And you can find me on Point in Progress. So go check out all of the things. Go check out the backlog of the MC University. I make a lot of stuff. You can find me a lot of places. Have fun with that.
Yeah, and have fun with that and enjoy. Of course, you can find me here at Point in Progress, the Point in Progress main podcast. You can find me here at MC University. You can also find me right now, actually, at PlayStation Source with my friend Kevin Diaz, as we do a reaction to all the new Last of Us episodes as the show comes out on HBO. I'm very, very happy about that. We have 2 episodes out right now, and we're excited for the series as a whole. I'd like to thank our guest, Jacob McCourt, who stopped by and had a conversation with me. My hair looked very different in the video. I hope you all enjoy. And check him out at Jacob McCourt. That is his Twitter handle, and of course all of his other socials that he mentions in his segment. Again, thank everyone for being here, and until next time, class is dismissed.
God, he can control all of us.
The world needs the X-Men.
That's why I'm here, to fight.
Not all of us can control our powers.
Then don't. This is war.
Everything they built will fall! And from the ashes of their world, we'll build a better one!
I've never felt power like this before.
I mean, one of our major questions that we used to ask guests is Dr. Doom or Mr. Fantastic a top or bottom? So don't worry, you're in good company. You can say whatever you want.
There's an appropriate answer for that, and it is Doctor Doom is the bottom.
Oh, there we go. Well, it's a good thing I hit the record button a few minutes ago.
Ah, you got me.
Yeah.
Exposed in 4K.
Yeah, I was eventually going to let you know. But yeah, anyways.